Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the MCH 2021 Annual Conference in the virtual space. I am Rhonda Otteson, Executive Director of the Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless. I'm thrilled that you are here with us and excited for a jam-packed two-day conference. We've lined up a fantastic keynote, over 40 breakout sessions featuring best practices, innovations, and partnerships to strengthen your work and our collective movement to end homelessness and housing instability in Minnesota. Thank you to all of our presenters in advance for elevating the innovations and important work that you are leading in your communities. This year's theme, Emerge, Evolve, and Elevate, Refocusing for the Future, was inspired by your incredible work as community leaders, advocates, and service providers all across the state. You've shown incredible resilience, creativity, dedication as you have navigated this pandemic. You have saved lives. Each year, MCH works with an artist to create artwork, especially for our conference. This year's conference artwork was created by Mary Billiard, an Indigenous artist from the Duluth area. Her inspiration is steeped in her involvement in the Duluth community. And here's what she had to say about her inspiration for this year's conference artwork. In Duluth, we have some amazing advocates doing work through AIM to implement a yurt program in people's yards. And that sort of inspired representations of home as structures around the heart. And subtly, the bridge shape at the top is representative of shelter as well. At the top, there's a person inspired by conversations I've had in different problem-solving cohorts around the idea of home, specifically conversations around the body itself as a home, and what that means in terms of our society that judges so harshly around matters of bodies that we have, including racism, ableism, ageism, sexism, and more. Everything in nature has shelter. Animals have the freedom and natural ability to shelter themselves. At the same time, housing has become objectified in the way we talk about it, as if it's not something that's natural for us to need and desire. So the heart, with the seed in the middle, is a metaphor for the theme of the conference, but also a reflection on shelter as a natural right. The staircase is shaped around the heart, alluding to the literal elevation towards caring and growth. Thank you, Miri, for lending your immense talent in creating this artwork for the conference. Later this morning, our keynote speaker, Amanda Andiri, will be talking about housing justice and racial equity in our collective work. One of the great parts of our conference is the networking and relationships that flourish organically during the process. While we can't replace this in the virtual space, we have added some coffee chats tomorrow morning on a variety of topics to spur conversation and relationship building. Our conference is made possible by all of you attending, of course, our presenters, but also by our incredible sponsors. Our leadership sponsors are the Minnesota Department of Human Services and the Polad Family Foundation. Our champion sponsor, Open Your Heart to the Hungry and Homeless. Our advocate sponsors, Northland Foundation and Minnesota Housing. Our friend sponsors, WellSky, St. Louis County, LIUNA, Catholic Charities of St. Paul and Minneapolis, and Hennepin County. And our grassroots sponsors, People Serving People, Hayes Company, and Missions Inc. Thank you so much to our sponsors for supporting this important conference. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Matt Diaz, to talk a little bit about tech support and Pheedloop.
Hi, thank you so much, Rhonda. As Rhonda said a second ago, I'm Matt Diaz, the Communications Director here at MCH. And I just want to take a quick opportunity to run you through some tech support stuff, just in case you have any tech assist needs over the next 2 days. So as you can see on the slide here, you can feel free to email us at info@mnhomelesscoalition.org, where our operations manager, Noah, will be there to answer any emails you have regarding tech support problems with Pheedloop or Zoom, just accessing the conference in general. Additionally, if you have needs that are more time sensitive, you can call or text the Google Voice number 612-424-0629 for immediate support. And if Noah isn't available to respond right away, then she's obviously on a call with someone else, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Additionally, closed captioning will be available in all of our breakout sessions and these larger webinars like this conference kickoff, the keynote, the award ceremony, the coffee chats through Zoom's automated live transcription feature. So if that accessibility function is something that you need, all you have to do is hit the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom window in order to enable it. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to show you Pheedloop. I'm sure that a lot of you have seen this already, considering the fact that you're in this event space right now. But Pheedloop has a lot of really cool little bells and whistles that really make the event a lot more intuitive and fun and cool. So the sessions tab is probably the most important thing that you'll need to use in order to access everything happening here at the conference. It has all of our different events, the breakout sessions, the keynote, the coffee chats, all lined out here in chronological order. And in order to access it, all you have to do is go to the appropriate time. So the next one will be the breakout session 1 at 9:30. Scroll down to here, and all of the sessions happening during this time period will be listed here. So just pick the one that you want to attend, or one that you're curious about. So let's say here it's understanding peer recovery support. And down here you have information about the speakers, the description of what the actual session is, and the Zoom link to join along with the meeting ID to enter if prompted. That's all you have to do is click on the link and you'll be led into the call once the actual session has begun. Additionally, the speakers and networking tabs are both very helpful for this event, especially with so many participants coming through. So for instance, if you attend someone's breakout session and you really want to touch base with them because you want to potentially work together in the future or you have additional questions, all you have to do is search their name here in the speakers tab and you can start a private chat. It also has their bio information along with any other sessions they might be a part of. The networking tab is also very similar, only it includes all of the attendees that are signed up through Pheedloop, not just the speakers. So let's say tomorrow in one of our 5 coffee chats, you hear someone make some points that you think are really interesting and you'd like to connect with them further over it. All you have to do is search their name here, click on it, and you'll be able to start a chat. Very neat stuff. Finally, something I think is really cool over here on the sidebar in all of your tabs, along with the chat and the participants, which 158 through Pheedloop, that's incredible. Up here, if you look at the little guy in the circle, these are all the accessibility functions that are integrated through Pheedloop, and they have some really good accessibility stuff here, going from seizure-safe profiles to ADHD-friendly profiles, all these different options that do a really great job of making it accessible and easy for you to customize the Pheedloop experience however is most comfortable for you. So that is Pheedloop. And with that, I will be handing it back off to my executive director, Rhonda Otteson.
Thank you. One of the great parts about being a part of this conference is being able to introduce and share space with incredible leaders. And certainly we can put Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan in that category. Peggy Flanagan is a mom, an advocate, a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe, and Minnesota's 50th Lieutenant Governor. Her career is built on standing up for children, working families, communities of color, and Indigenous communities, and Minnesotans who have historically been underserved and underrepresented. As a former state representative, school board member, nonprofit leader, and community advocate, she now brings her experiences of building coalitions and advocating for children and families to the Lieutenant Governor's office as she works in partnership with Governor Walz to build one Minnesota. So I'm very excited to introduce and hand it over to Lieutenant Governor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Rhonda. It's so good to be here. Good morning, everybody. I'm Peggy Flanagan, and I'm really happy to be here with all of you. And I just wanted to welcome you to my kitchen. This would be where you would be sitting in my house if we were able to be all together. And so I appreciate being in this virtual room and community with all of you. So I am really excited to be here, kicking off these 2 days of the conference with you, of people who are housing champions and who are doing some of the most important work that is happening in Minnesota. And I wanted to take just a moment to thank Rhonda and the rest of the Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless for all of the work that they do in putting this event together, and all of the folks who have stepped up to be part of workshops and make sure that you are just sharing your wisdom and knowledge and grace with folks in this moment on behalf of our neighbors. I'd like to thank you for being in attendance today, for taking this time and your commitment to being here, and knowing that when you are spending time here, I hope that it fills you up for the rest of the work that you have to do. Each and every one of the presenters, attendees, and organizers has made a commitment to end homelessness. And no matter how far we have come, there is still so much more to do. Having a safe place to live is the foundation for success for children and families. But I know how hard it can be for families in Minnesota to find housing that's affordable. And it is part of my story and part of my narrative. And many of you have probably heard this story before, but it bears repeating because we need to make sure that our narratives, the narratives of the people that we are in community with every day, are heard, and that then impacts the decisions that are made at tables across the state. As a kid, I grew up in the community of St. Louis Park, where I still live now. And my mom moved us here when I was just a baby. And our goal should be to make sure that every family has access to the support and resources that they need when they need it, support safe and stable housing for all of our neighbors. And I have to tell you, I am here because of those programs like SNAP and Section 8 and CCAP, not in spite of them. And now we know that homelessness is a crisis that impacts communities across the state, across the country, and across the world. But I am proud of the work that we've been able to do in partnership with communities so far, and I want to lift up some of that work right now. I'll start with 2019. When we first came into office, I began in the role to lead the Minnesota Interagency Council on Homelessness. This was a space where we could partner with our partners across sector, with folks with lived experience, and with administrative leaders across agencies, because we know that this issue is not singular. It helped us to take action. The first winter we were in office, we partnered with the private sector, philanthropic partners, and people across the state to launch the Minnesota Winter Homelessness Initiative. This prioritized getting people into safe and warm establishments in the cold winter months. And I'm so grateful to the partners who stepped up and led in big ways to get that done. And we were feeling hopeful. And then the COVID-19 pandemic struck. And at a time when Minnesotans needed to stay home, we had to ensure that people had a safe place to stay. Governor Walz and I implemented the eviction moratorium, which helped to protect our neighbors from losing their housing because they weren't able to pay their rent or mortgage. We provided funds for shelters and outreach workers to implement new public health practices and outreach strategies to help support our neighbors utilizing shelter spaces. And we also implemented a rental assistance program called Rent Help MN. Our efforts with Rent Help MN have been carefully curated through federal and state partnerships with the main goal of keeping people out of the shelter system. We wanted a system with protections for tenants while helping landlords still collect the rent to be able to pay their bills. In the recent legislative session, we are able to secure $100 million in housing infrastructure bonds to create new affordable housing opportunities. And I have to say that this is something that as an advocate, I never thought would come true. And it is testament to all of the work of the people who are in this virtual room together. We also increased the emergency shelter program funding by doubling it from 600,000 to 12 million. In fact, that's more than doubling it. This money will be used largely for shelter operations and also for looking for other ways to keep children and families safe while searching for stable housing. But we didn't stop there. Last week, on Wednesday, September 29th, we announced a $15 million from the Federal American Rescue Plan to provide emergency shelter and essential services for people who are homeless. We realize that COVID-19 is very much still a part of our world. So we're prioritizing those investments that modify shelter spaces that prevent transmissions and outbreaks for COVID-19. We know that COVID is not the only issue, certainly, that's affecting folks, but we know that what else there is to overcome. And we need to make sure that every person in Minnesota has a roof over their head, because everyone has the same basic needs. Overcoming homelessness is a collaborative effort, and we need to hear the voices and demands of policymakers, social workers, educators, community leaders, and of course, our relatives who are experiencing homelessness directly, because their voices matter. Your voices matter, your experiences matter, and people who are making decisions every day need to hear from you. People deserve to live in a state that provides safety. People deserve to live in a state that provides housing as a top priority. Safety for themselves, safety for their loved ones, safety for their belongings. This conference serves as a forum to inspire ideas to ensure that people have a place to call home. And I can't wait to hear some of the ideas that come out of this space that we can continue to move together. We know that the only real way to end homelessness is to make sure that everyone has a home, a shelter over their head, a place they can feel safe. And I believe that we can get to a place where Minnesota is a state where everyone has that necessity met. So thank you for dedicating time today and tomorrow for Housing for All, and good luck with the rest of the conferences. I have seen the lineup. It looks pretty good, and it's a really powerful group of folks. And before I go, though, I'd like to give a special shout out to our Minnesota Interagency Council on Homelessness team, led by the amazing Kathy Tenbrook and Eric Grumdahl. They'll be leading a session tomorrow focused on the next phase of our Interagency's council work and our recent commitment to a housing, health, and racial justice focus. So I might be biased, but I think this is probably a session that you don't want to miss. And I encourage you all to dig in there. And we just held a full meeting of the Interagency Council this week, and I'm excited about this path and development. And I'm honored and humbled to be in this work with all of you. Please continue to show up. Chimigwech.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you for sharing this space with us this morning. I'm so grateful for your leadership and just your words of encouragement. It's been a tough time during the pandemic for everyone, leaders and workers in the field, and it means so much for you just to come here and give a bit of a rally to everyone here. So thank you so much. So I think we are actually going to move over. I think we're still waiting for Mayor Larson to join us this morning. So I am going to introduce Deputy Mayor Jaime Tincher. Deputy Mayor Jaime Tincher works side by side with Mayor Melvin Carter to implement the work of the City of St. Paul, overseeing efforts to rehouse people living in encampments. The City of St. Paul has also been a partner in our work to advance investments in shelter and been truly a champion in partnership with MCH's work, as well as leading in homeless response efforts in St. Paul. So I'm happy to welcome Deputy Mayor Tincher. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Minnesota Homeless Coalition for all the work that you do. I'm excited about this conference and I'm honored to be here. I also want to thank all the service providers, practitioners, and the members of our community who have been working through this pandemic that has severely exacerbated all the challenges that existed before. I know that there is an emotional and physical toll that this has had on the staff and the volunteers who work every day to care for members of our community who are struggling and suffering. I'm immensely grateful for the work that you do, and I hope that you take the time and find the resources and supports that you need to care for yourselves, because we all need you. Over the past 15 months, we lost 5 people in St. Paul who were sheltering outdoors. Their deaths are tragic, and we're committed to doing more and better to support the members of our community while they're experiencing homelessness and to increasing affordable housing. I'm new to this work. I know enough now to understand how little I know. I've learned enough now to see how many gaps we have and how many ways we can be doing better. In the midst of the COVID crisis, we partnered with Ramsey County and went into action mode, but we were listening and we were learning, and we continue to listen and learn. Partnering with Ramsey County, we worked to stand up approximately 450 new spaces for unsheltered residents within 5 months. We developed a step-up system to move people to more stable housing and a city process to transition individuals from encampments to indoor options that better met their needs. Partnering with the state, we also added 2 city recreation centers to provide emergency overnight shelter during the winter. Of the dozens and dozens of low barrier shelter referrals that we've made in this work, Ramsey County estimates that 64 of those individuals, just in the last 10 months, have taken advantage of the county's Step Up program and are now successfully living in longer term housing. Once the effects of the pandemic hit, and due to the scale of the crisis, we engaged directly with our residents experiencing homelessness to assist however we could. And while this greatly helped to address the immediate crisis, we've also learned a lot about how we respond as a city. And we feel this work should be an embedded role and responsibility for the city, staffed by the city. There have been 3 key areas of learning for us, and these may all well be things that this group has understood for a long time, but they're important for us as we continue to build out our response efforts. A key learning has centered around law enforcement perceptions for people experiencing homelessness, and we've learned to be very intentional about our law enforcement presence in this work. Through surveys and discussions directly with people experiencing homelessness, we've heard the fears some people have when engaging with law enforcement based on their previous experiences. We've observed numerous instances where our unsheltered residents will just not engage when they see a badge. They shut down, walk away, and ultimately remain unsheltered. Another key learning is that one size does not fit all. Many solutions don't work for everybody, and we need individualized responses. And we now fully appreciate the time and the space required to build trust in order to uncover issues and to develop individualized solutions. We've learned that timeliness is key. When a person is ready to engage, if we are unable to pull together the appropriate resources and act swiftly, they often disengage and remain outside. This past year has made the importance of information sharing abundantly clear for us when we are all trying to achieve effective coordination for the individuals we are trying to serve. We're now in the hiring process to create a new 3-person team in the Department of Safety Inspections to provide dedicated services to the needs of our residents sheltering outdoors. Their work will include street outreach, development and maintenance of a by name registry, and shelter referrals. The lead person within this team will also serve as the city's point person in this work. We will continue to be in action mode, and we are continuing to listen and learn. And we look forward to working with all of you because we know, as you do, shelter saves lives and housing ends homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor, for highlighting the innovative and really thoughtful work that you're doing at the City of St. Paul. I think so many times when we hear about encampments, there's really a response that isn't as compassionate as we like to see. And it sounds like you guys are just really leading in that space. So thanks again. And thanks for addressing our conference. We have about 200 people here this morning, but we have 500 people signed up for our conference. So it's really an incredible space to be able to share. And thank you for sharing your innovative efforts.
Thank you so much.
So as we are just waiting, it looks like Mayor Larson had a little bit of a conflict in her schedule. So as we're waiting for the folks from Duluth to join us, I wanted to highlight our social media. So obviously we've talked about this before, but jump on our social media and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're going to take just a few seconds right now to wait for Mayor Larson. But while we're doing that, I'm just going to go off camera for just a moment. So all of you can hop on social media and share your thoughts. And we'll be with you in just a minute or two. So just a quick little update. It looks like Mayor Larson is logging in now, but I wanted to hop over to actually one of our last slides on our slide deck. I'm going to have Matt Diaz talk a little bit about our coffee chats and our conference awards as we look forward to tomorrow.
Hi, everybody. It's me again. Just hopping on here really quick, like Rhonda said, to give you a little preview of what to look forward to tomorrow. We are certainly making sure to end this conference with a bang. So I'm very, very excited about the stuff we have going on. So tomorrow morning, we are kicking off the second day of our conference with coffee chats. These are kind of lighthearted, more casual, very cool networking opportunities to kind of converse and meet with other advocates and workers and organizers that are doing the same thing you're doing. So tomorrow you can join us for this casual conversation of one of 5 topics, and they're going to be facilitated by local advocates, organizers, and workers. And those 5 are going to be trans equity in shelter and housing, engaging people with lived experience in decision-making, self-care and community care and advocacy, person-first storytelling, doing justice to the people you serve, and leaders of color and advocacy, a BIPOC-only space. Now, just a quick note, as it says for that last one, Leaders of Color and Advocacy is a designated BIPOC-only space. We really wanted to make a point to create a safe and healing space for our BIPOC leaders, advocates, organizers, workers, to be able to come together and have a very honest and safe conversation about what it means to be a person of color navigating this work. And so just a note to our white allies, please respect that and allow it to be a BIPOC only space. Additionally, tomorrow at 1 p.m., we're going to be having our conference awards, where you can come celebrate the winners of this year's conference awards and join the winners in a facilitated conversation about their work, what they're passionate about, why they do what they do, and what eventually motivated them to be the winners of this year's conference awards in the first place. And that conversation will be facilitated by 2 of our MCH staff. Additionally, I wanted to just take a moment and show you, speaking of staff. So, like myself, a lot of people over here at MCH have been new hires over the last year or so. And unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we haven't really had the opportunity to meet with you and get to know you in person in the same way that we would any other normal year. So I just wanted to very quickly run through and sort of familiarize you with some of the names and faces that you'll be seeing, I'm sure, over the next 2 days. So Clara Lind is our Director of Development. I'm Matt Diaz, obviously, I'm our Director of Communications. Matt Trainer, who I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, is our Director of Organizing. Noah K. Levi, who I mentioned earlier in our tech support slide, is our Operations Manager. Rhonda Otteson is our Executive Director, obviously. She's been presenting alongside myself this morning. Zach Eichten is our Director of Public Policy. And last but definitely not least, Zara Wolf is our Regional Experts Organizer. So yeah, I'm just very, very excited to be here with all of you. We have over 200 people here, which is incredible, especially for 9 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday. So I'm just very, very happy to be here.
Thank you, Matt. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Mayor Emily Larson. She is the mayor of Duluth. And Mayor Larson was first elected in 2015 and re-elected in 2019. And among her priorities, addressing homelessness and creating housing in Duluth are among her top priorities. So thank you, Mayor Larson, for joining us this morning. And I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, that's great. Good morning, everybody. You can hear me okay, Rhonda? Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Emily. I am here in foggy Duluth, and I wish all of you were here. I know that the conference was planned initially to be in Duluth this year, and it will be in Duluth next year. So we are eager to welcome you here to show you what it is that we're doing as it relates to housing, and even more importantly, to learn from you on what we could be doing more and better. Here in Duluth, we are really excited about the work that we're doing. I know you're going to hear from Chum about their low barrier shelter, and special hello to Matt Trainer. He and I knew each other in our Chum days. Chum is an organization that serves people with low and no incomes, and that is the history of my work, actually, and specifically with that organization. So prior to being in elected office, I worked as a social worker and spent 13 years working with families and people with low and no income seeking shelter and emergency stabilizing supports. It was the most meaningful and important value-based work that I've done that is really built into the foundation of how to lead and how to be a mayor. And what I learned as kind of an organizing position, but primarily delivering social work services, is the inherent value of every single one of us, the reflection of our humanity in every person that extends beyond incomes and that extends beyond housing stability. And I'm really honored that actually many of in non-COVID times, many of the walk-in guests that we have that stop into City Hall are from my chum days. And nothing feels better to me actually than seeing people that we have a long, strong, heart-based history of work together, and to see that extend and to have people feel like this is their building, that City Hall and public spaces are their buildings and spaces, because they are. So I want to share just a few things that we're doing in Duluth. In the past month, we have had 3 celebrations and actually ribbon cuttings, not even groundbreakings, of 100 new units of affordable housing that have been brought into our housing stock. Housing has been a passion of mine, an area that I've done a lot of work in, both professionally and then as nonprofit board. It's been a key priority of mine as a mayor, and it is the single hardest issue. I say this every time. It is because it's a math problem, right? There's somebody or some organization needs to fund affordability so that people can have access to housing. It is a math problem that never ends and continues to get more and more complicated. Later today, actually in an hour, I think I'm going to be announcing our housing trust fund for the city of Duluth. I convened a mayor's task force within the last year and a half, looking at housing, specifically at housing. I got the idea to do that having been chosen to be on Governor Dayton's statewide housing task force, and wanted to bring that kind of big picture thinking to the local level. The number one recommendation from our local mayor's task force on housing was a housing trust fund. And I'm really excited to announce today that the city of Duluth is investing $4 million into a housing trust fund. Keep that quiet, I guess, 200 people, because we're going to announce that in an hour. But the idea is that we need to be doing more. We need to help fix the math problem that exists, and we're willing to do that. Finally, I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I think the work of ensuring that people have access to shelter, to housing supports, to a path of housing stability. To me, doing this work, it feels more important really than ever. When we're looking and really experiencing the loss that people have had through the pandemic, through the intersection of racial injustice, through redlining, through income inequality, through intentional systems that have held people back, and unintentional consequences of personal actions. It's painful and it's real. And when we are talking about hope, and we are talking about vision and how to move our state and our community and our neighborhoods forward, there's no way we do that unless people have a safe place to lay their head at night. Having done a lot of work, having raised kids now, my own sons are grown and out of the house, having watched kids that really should have graduated with them and walked across the stage who didn't make it, and housing instability was a big factor in that. It wasn't intellectual capacity, it wasn't curiosity, it was instability and a community not being able to rise to the very real challenge of supporting these families to have what these kids and parents would need. So again, thank you for what you're doing. We have so much that we could talk about in Duluth. I can't wait to show you at the next conference. And again, while we feel like we are leading in the state in many ways, we know that that leadership looks different in every area, every community, that innovation gets to look different in every area and every community. I thank you for the work that you're doing as an organization, as leaders, as activists, as rabble rousers, as professionals on this call. And finally, I will just say that one of the things that's most compelling to me when people are trying to get me on board with something as a policy, whether this is in housing or any other area, is to simply tell your story. And the reason is I can't argue your story. We can get facts and we can get figures and we can do that, later after the conversation. But when you look me in the eye and you tell me what your story is, it is the most compelling evidence of need. And so I would really encourage you, whether you're working and sharing your own story or working, to help share other people's stories to elevate it for policymakers, it is the purest and most important communication you can have. And that even when you have allies, and I feel like I am an ally in this work, your job is to push me, and that's good. I get that. I know that, and I appreciate it, and I'm grateful for it. So with all of that in mind, I hope your conference goes great this year. I know it will. The work is important, and the will is there of people to get good work done, and we will see you in Duluth next year.
Thank you. We very much hope that we will be in Duluth next year for the conference. It's such an incredible space to gather and really inspire people. So thank you for all your words, for your advocacy, for knowing that we're going to keep pushing on all these issues. And thank you for being an ally and pushing at the state legislature on some of these issues. So again, thank you for joining us and for sharing your perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great conference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Matt Diaz, and they are going to close out the last part of this portion of the conference.
Thank you, Rhonda. Hi, everybody. I'm back again, just here to talk to you about social media and to make sure I'm getting my money's worth on this outfit. So I just wanted to reiterate what Rhonda said a little bit earlier about following us on social media during the conference. So you can find us at MN Homeless Co. on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find us at the Minnesota Coalition for the Homeless on Facebook. Now, be sure with any of the stuff that you post, whether it be a tweet or photos, screenshots, anything you post about this over the course of the next 2 days, you use hashtag MCHConf or hashtag MCHConference 2021. And that way we'll be able to find them more easily and we'll be able to feature people over the coming days. Very, very exciting. I can't wait to see what everyone's been sharing already. Our Twitter timeline's already been blowing up with people who are super excited about the conference, and it's just very, very invigorating to see. So yeah, beyond that, I just wanted to say thank you all for being here. Thank you to Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and to Mayor Larson, to Deputy Mayor Tincher, all for speaking. And we will see you back here at 11 o'clock for our keynote. Go grab some coffee, take your bathroom break, and we'll start off with all the breakout sessions at 9:30.